I'll remind everybody that it is live streamed when we get started.
There you go, you're live.
Thank you. Thank you for setting everything up, Derek. And if in case I forget, thank you to
No
Joanna
problem.
for taking the minutes. Hello, Graham.
Hello. Sorry, I was struggling to get in there a bit.
Well, I think a few people are struggling today. Hello, Nicholas. You're on mute. I can't hear you.
Yes, that's just in case anyone disturbs me.
Thank you.
Yes, hello.
Hello. How are we doing? Let's just check everybody off. So I see we've got Dennis has joined. Hello, Dennis.
Hi.
I can't see you, but that's fine if you want to keep your camera off.
No, that's not deliberate.
Hello, Richard.
It's down the bottom left. Says stop. Start video.
No, not
Next
on
to
this
the
one.
mic. Next to the mic symbol.
Oh,
No.
There we are. Start.
Yeah, hi, Colin.
Oh, well done. There you are.
Yeah,
Hi, Dennis.
there we
I
are.
can see you now.
Yeah.
So who were we missing? Haven't got anybody from the Crown Estate today, have we? Did we have confirmation somebody was joining from Crown Estate?
Don't know if anyone confirmed. I didn't see anything.
Okay.
Connected.
Right. Oh. So I did have an email from Sue this afternoon saying she was unwell, so won't be joining us, unfortunately.
Oh, right.
With one down there, and we already knew that Jenny Young was going to be away today. Oh, I see we've got Charisse joining us. Welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. And so we're missing Jeff and David, but given that it's gone past 7 o'clock, I think we probably ought to get started and let other people catch up if they do join. So who's driving the slides today?
Me. If all goes well.
Okay.
The slides are on Teams and the meeting's in Zoom. I'm a bit confused because I can't.
Oh, right. Yes.
I can't pull it out into PowerPoint for some reason. So.
Hugh, can you hear us now? But I take it the answer is yes, but you're on mute.
Sounded very interesting from the lip
Yes.
reading.
You can hear us. Hello.
My daughter-in-law came and rescued me. Yeah.
Oh, that's
good.
good.
I had to do it through some other system because apparently my Zoom has run out. But
Yeah, I know. Mine took ages to update. I haven't used it since the last meeting. Okay, let's get started. Graham, if you've got the technology to project.
Okie dokie.
And we'll do some introductions as we get into the meeting, because there's a lot of familiar faces, but plenty of new faces. So welcome to everybody. So yes, the Bracknell Forest Local Countryside Access Forum. We have 4 new members today. We've got Dennis Crampton, who's joining as an individual member. 3 new members, sorry. And then we've got our 2 new councillor reps, Charisse Welsh and Sheila Collins. So welcome. We've got a few other changes that I want to go through on the next slide. So after I've been through the changes, I'm going to go around and ask everybody to introduce themselves so that new members can feel that they have some idea of who we are and what we're doing. So we've had apologies from Jenny, who's been on the forum for a while. And as I said, I had apologies today from Sue McDade. We move. Oh, the other thing I just wanted to remind everybody whilst we're on this one, this meeting is obviously on not Teams, on Zoom. It is actually being live streamed. I'm not sure whether anybody ever joins in on a live stream, but anyway, it also will be available, I believe, on YouTube subsequently. So just need to be aware that what is said is in the public domain more than just the minutes. Just to help us, if you could stay on mute when you're not talking, but try and remember to put it back on when you want to. Either raise your hands using the hands button, which is somewhere, or just wave at us and we'll try and make sure that everybody participates. Yeah, it does help if you turn your camera on when you're speaking so we know who's who. Okay, shall we move on to the next slide, please, Graham? So, I said there've been quite a number of changes since we last met in February. And after I've been through this slide, I will go around the room and ask everybody to introduce themselves. So I already mentioned Dennis has joined us as a new member. So welcome, Dennis. And we appreciate you joining the forum. We've got, as I mentioned, our two new councillor representatives, Cherise Welsh, and Sheila Collins, and they're taking over from councillors Alvin Finch and Michael Brassard, who were the previous councillor representatives. I think it's only fair to record in the minutes our thanks to our previous councillor representatives. They certainly have been on the forum for all of the time that I've been on the forum. So we have appreciated their contribution. So we mentioned Michael, but Michael has actually asked if he could join or remain a member in his own right. So not as a council representative, but as an individual representative on the forum. And we certainly welcome his knowledge of the local rights of way, particularly in the south of the borough around the Sandhurst area. So thank you, Michael, for keeping our numbers up. We do have a vacant position. I think I sent an email to everybody informing you that Richard Mosses, our vice chair, has sadly passed away. Richard was, I think, our longest serving member of the forum, and we have decided to put the next item on the agenda as a tribute to Richard because he contributed so much. So I'll say more about Richard in a moment, but then item 4 means that we have to elect a new vice chair. So I perhaps could give that some thought. So the forum now stands at 11 people, reasonably healthy, but we are just towards the bottom end of what is the required number. I think it's 10 that we're required to have. So we still have some significant gaps. We've got a lot of walkers, a number of cyclists, one horse rider, and nobody representing anybody who has mobility issues. So if anybody has any contacts in those areas, then that would be certainly helpful. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and ask people to introduce themselves, and it'll be in the order that you're displaying on my screen. So please don't think I'm picking anybody. So I'm going to introduce myself first, which I'm Colin Bird. I'm the chair of the Access Forum. I think I've been on it since about 2015 and have been chair for probably about 3 or 4 years now. I'm a walker. I'm a member of the South East Berkshire Ramblers group. In fact, I'm footpath secretary of that group, and I have a great interest in our local public rights of way and open spaces. So, Rob, you're next on my list.
Are you sure you're not picking on me?
I'm going round on the list here as you're displaying.
No, hi everyone, evening all. For those who don't know me, I'm Rob Solomon. I work for Bracknell Forest Council and are currently Rights of Way and SANG officer. I've worked for the council since roughly 2013, mainly as a ranger, and have taken up this recent role a couple of years ago. Essentially, my role is organising SANG or suitable alternative natural green space projects and monitoring their spend on a series of sites throughout the borough. And my rights of way role is primarily around the maintenance of the rights of way. I'm also kind of the guy on the ground more often than not, so kind of the first point of contact for any site issues or problems that arise.
Thank you, Rob.
Rose, you're next on my list.
Hi, Colin. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone, including our new members. I'm Rose Wicks. I'm Data and Communications Officer for the Parks Countryside Service at the Bracknell Forest Council. That's a bit of a mouthful. My sort of prime area of focus, it's split across several areas, but rights of way is one of them. I work with Graham, who's my manager, to sort of help deliver more of the legislation side of rights of way, sort of, you know, definitive map process, all that kind of stuff. But I'm also sort of doing the communications and marketing for Parks Countryside. I'm the routine publicity officer. So that's another area of specialism, sort of put out press releases, social media posts, etc., website updates. And also I sort of have a specialism in things like Section 106, sort of developer funding. But yeah, primarily my role is sort of data and comms, and I've been sort of going to meetings since about 2010, I believe. So I've been here for quite a while, and yeah, I help support LCAF's sort of administration side. So I put together presentations and liaise a lot with Colin about sort of logistics of running the meetings. Yeah, I think that's it.
And to be fair, Rose, the meetings wouldn't happen like they do if it wasn't for your efforts.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Colin. That's good to know.
Sheila, you're next on my list.
Hello, everybody. I'm the new councillor for Binfield North and Warfield West, which is a bit of a mouthful. But some of you will know me better as my association with Warfield Environment Group, which I have been helping to run since it was founded over 20 years ago. More recently, I've been as a councillor for Warfield Parish Council, and before that I worked for Warfield Parish Council, so I know certainly Warfield and parts of Binfield quite well, and I have quite a bit of knowledge about the SANG in those areas. Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Sheila. Graham, you're next on my list.
Okay, hi, I'm Graham Pocket. I'm Parks and Countryside Development Manager for the borough. So we help to facilitate these meetings. Yeah, I've been involved since about 2009, I think, in the Access Forum, and that's the year I joined the council as well, when Natural England still had more involvement in providing conferences and regional representation and all sorts of other things. So yeah, my team includes Rose, Rob, biodiversity officers and a landscape designer in the office at Times Square. So yeah, that's a very brief outline.
Thank you, Graham. And Graham also provides an awful lot of help in getting these meetings going, as well as running the slide projectors. Nicholas, you're next.
Good evening, Nicholas Ballard. I joined LAF after attending as an observer from the Ramblers, and I'm a part of the Ramblers team for Don't Lose Your Way. And prior to that, I was studying the maps on behalf of Ramblers to identify what paths had been lost. And sad to say that in most of the paths that we've got in Bracknell, they're all under housing, although I'm finding that the paths are there, but as an alleyway. So there's lots and lots of paths available, but they're in alleyways. I'd like to record that we've done, or my wife and I follow her as a back marker for walks. And she led a walk through Bracknell where people who live in the local area, less than a kilometre away, didn't realise that the park was there. One walked around it, but he didn't know what else was there. And we walked down to the Newt Preservation Place, which was a pit only 30, 40 years ago, and saw the pits. And my wife says that the expression on their faces was absolutely amazing, because one of them lived no more than 100 metres away and didn't know it was there. So it's not a fault of the council. They just moved from where they are by bus or car somewhere where they used to walk. So I walk a lot, and I don't mind. I should say that I live in Crowthorne. So if there's representation to be made, then I can have a look around Crowthorne Pathway.
Thank you, Nicholas. And you're certainly right that there's lots of people who don't know what's on their doorstep around the area. Dennis, you're next, please.
Hi, yeah, I'm new. I'm a walker and cyclist. I'm a bit of an explorer. When I go for a bike ride, if I see something that I haven't noticed before, I ride along it to see what's there. So as a result, I've got a fairly good knowledge of what is there on the ground, all over the borough, and so I'm expecting my contribution to be that practical experience of walking and riding on bridleways and footpaths around the borough. Hopefully I can do something useful.
Thank you, Dennis, and welcome. Hugh, you're next on my list.
Right, I've been a member of this group since it started, I think. My original role was as rights of way ranger with Bracknell Forest. I used to be a member of Bracknell Parish Council, and I used to look after their interests or be interested in things that affected the parish in terms of access. I'm now no longer a parish councillor, so I merely stand in my own right. I am essentially a walker, and I have a fairly good knowledge of most paths and open spaces in the borough.
We certainly benefit from your deep knowledge of the local area. Thank you, Hugh. Charisse, you're next.
Hi, I'm Charisse Welch. I'm the new councillor for Labour for Harmons Water and Crown Wood. I live in Harmons Water. I am a walker myself, and I do cycle a lot, so I believe I'm in the right place here.
That's good.
I wouldn't say I have a vast knowledge of all the parks outside of Bracknell. I know the ones within Bracknell, but I wouldn't know Crowthorne that well, for example, or Warfield. So hopefully I can learn a lot.
That's good. Perhaps we can encourage you to explore further,
yes,
if council duties allow you to have the time. Richard, you're next.
Yes, Richard Ellsbury. I've lived in Bracknell 40 odd years and joined Bracknell Conservation Volunteers about year 2000, and amazed on how many different open spaces there were. So I represent what we can do out in the countryside with a bunch of volunteers and make a difference, assisting Rob and other rangers on a weekly basis. Been on the forum for probably 5 years, Colin.
About that, yes.
To really get a knowledge of really where Bracknell Forest is going to and what we can achieve. So yeah, let's leave it like that. I've been out today with Colin, so he and I know each other quite well, but it'd be nice to get to know some of the other new members soon.
Thank you, Richard. And Michael, you're the last on my list.
Colin, yeah, let me get my microphone on. Colin, thank you for that. Little Sandhurst resident and also a town councillor for Central Sandhurst. I'm very much involved in Sandhurst with the Memorial Park, snap rails. I'm also passionate about footpaths and also litter picking. What I do value very much, can I say, Colin, is the site visits we've undertaken. I think of a recent one, for instance, with the TRL site, which was, I think, a very beneficial, and I do hope they will continue, because I do think it will provide those participants with an understanding of the community benefits that we have, which I think augurs well for the future. So thank you, Colin, for all you're doing for us.
Thank you, Michael. So that's all at the present today. A couple of members who aren't who sent their apologies. A couple of members who we haven't heard from. I was also we have in the last 2 or 3 meetings managed to resurrect a representative from the Crown Estate. But we don't have one today. I think we might need to chase that one, given that the Crown Estate land is so much of the open space that we have in Bracknell Forest area. We have benefited from having that connection. So thank you everybody for your introductions. I was going to say earlier on, just a reminder that for those, especially for the new people, this is a statutory forum that the council has to have as an advisory forum on primarily on public rights of way, but we in this borough expanded it to include open spaces, which is why most access forums are called local access forums, but we call ourselves the local countryside access forums. So given all the SANGs that we have in the area and other open spaces around Bracknell, we consider them all part of our remit to advise the council. So with that, I'm going to ask to move on to the next slide, please, Graham. I did mention earlier on Richard Mosses. I was going to say he'd been the longest serving member of the forum, but Hugh's just reminded me that he was on it before, but he didn't appear on the attendee list for the Richard's first one in April 2006. I've got a few slides here because Richard has done so much for the borough, and I just want to credit him and give tribute to him. We have asked the permission of his family to do this because we felt, given that it's live streamed and available on the internet, that it's appropriate for that to be something where we sought their permission to do this. I just give you a little bit more background. Richard was present at our last meeting. He then went on a round the world cruise for 3 months, and he died in Hawaii when he was out trekking and fell over and hit his head. So he was doing what he loved best, which was walking, trekking, it was obviously on a major adventure at the time, and when he sadly died. He was a keen walker and represented countryside users on the forum. Rose has listed all the organisations that he listed on his membership form that he was a member of. All of them are either walking or wildlife related. He was a great lover of the countryside. So we move on to the next slide, please, Graham. Couple of photographs. Now, we have blurred out some faces on here because we don't have permission to use faces of people who've been past members of the forum. But Richard has been on the forum for 17 years. The picture on the left, you'll see Richard on the left of the leading group there, walking around at Jennetts Park, where you went to inspect the diversion of the paths when the estate was built at Jennetts Park. And the second picture was on a site visit to Swinley Forest to see how the forest was recovering after the 2011 forest fire. Both of these pictures are from our annual reports, so they are actually in the public domain, but we did feel it was appropriate to blur the images of everybody else on here. So yes, Richard was definitely somebody who actively joined in all of our visits. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So in 2016, Richard was elected to the role of vice chair, which he remained for the next 7 years. And we'd really like to thank Richard for all his dedication over the years. He has made a tremendous difference to improving access to the countryside. And I personally will remember him as a member of the South East Berkshire Ramblers, where he led walks. He knew the footpaths in the area intimately. He was regularly flagging up issues what he'd identified, or where there were problems in the paths, or even opportunities for new rights of way. And appropriately, at the last forum meeting, we were discussing Moss's Path in Binfield, and we're actually, as a forum of the council's working with the South East Berkshire Ramblers to provide a memorial plaque to Richard and his brother Robin, who was also a walker in the borough, for Moss's Path in Binfield. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about Moss's Path as we go through the slides. So yes, so that was Richard. I've got very fond memories of him. When he ever led walks, he never seemed to need to use a map. So, Hugh, do you have some memories?
I wanted to say we really can't overestimate the amount he contributed and the trouble he took to work to keep things moving, to keep things going, to keep paths open, bring things to our attention. But I think too, we ought to put it into the context of his brother Robin. Interesting, right at the end here is the name. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you've mentioned him, because as a family, they were encyclopedic in their knowledge of things countryside and paths throughout the borough. And it wasn't just Richard. The whole family were big benefactors to the open spaces.
Thank you, Hugh. Does anybody else want to say anything about Richard? I'm not sure how many others on today would have known Richard very well. Okay, so we've taken a while to go through all the changes on the forum, and I think it's now time to just to move on to the next item on the agenda. So if we could move on the slide, Graham. We do need a new vice chair. I haven't heard of anybody who's answered my suggestion to think about it. Is anybody interested in becoming vice chair of the forum? It's not a particularly onerous role. It basically is to chair the meetings if I'm not available. Hugh.
I'm not going to suggest me, but is it in order for me to suggest somebody who is on this meeting? They don't know that I'm going to suggest them.
It's up to you, Hugh.
Well,
the consequences.
I was wondering if Michael felt willing, would he be prepared to take it on?
So is there more than one Michael? I'm rather hoping there is.
No, Michael, there is not more than one Michael.
The right voice has answered.
Hugh, the irony is, I was actually going to propose you as vice chairman. I'd like to propose you. Could I have a nomination? Could I have a seconder for that?
Well, I'm prepared to nominate. Anybody second?
And I'm prepared
Well,
to
I'd
second
certainly
it.
have seconded.
Right, in that case then, Hugh, by fait accompli, you appear to be vice chairman.
No, I'm not sure whether that worked or not.
Well,
you want to think about it and let me know?
well, for Hugh or myself, no, I
Well,
can't, honestly.
You can't do
I
it.
think that
And
Hugh,
Hugh,
with his Encyclopedia Britannica knowledge, I think would be an ideal vice chairman.
No, I can't cope with Zoom meetings, and I'm getting far too old and muddled to do these sorts of things.
right. Okay. Let's take that offline then.
Okay, yes. Okay.
Have a think about it. We would appreciate a vice chair. Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Yep.
I think we can manage for the moment without it, and we'll if I'm not available for a meeting, we'll have to work out how we do that. Okay, let's move on and let's get on to some of the other aspects in here. Minutes of the last meeting were circulated with the agenda. I don't propose to go through them as usual. We don't. Does anybody have any comments, corrections, changes to the minutes? Rose.
Hi, Colin. Yeah, just there was a bit of a typo on point 247, pro improvements and issues. It was meant to say query if local MP could be approached on the issue.
Right.
It's just
Okay.
lacking the reference to MP, just put it into context.
Okay, hopefully that we can include in the minutes. Is everybody happy to approve the minutes? Yeah, I'll take that as a yes. So again, we don't go through all of the actions on the forum meeting. There is Appendix 1 to the agenda, where Rose and Graham and Rob have listed the actions and listed the current progress on them. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the action points? Thank you. I'll take that as everybody's happy that things are progressing. And just a reminder, we have Annex 2, Appendix 2, which is the forum's list of proposals for new or modified public rights of way or access routes in the borough that we don't go through in detail every time, but we wanted to keep them as a list of possible options. Some of them are more difficult than others. We have put on there the whether it's high potential, medium potential, or low potential for them to be achieved, but it does keep the list fresh and keep it with us. So something for us to look at in future. Rose.
Hi, Colin. Sorry. One of the actions in Appendix 1, which was the actions from the last meeting,
yep.
There was a query regarding the organised walk in Winkfield, in relation to sort of like trying to sort of promote walking in that area, and just wondered if we've got an update on that.
Yeah, well, that was going to be Jeff, wasn't it?
Oh, Jeff's not here today.
Jeff's
okay,
not
fine.
joined us, yeah. So we'll
carry that forward.
Yeah, we'll have to try and get in touch with Jeff and ask him what happened.
Oh, actually, Sheila's got a hand up.
Hello, Sheila.
Can I just ask a couple of questions about the proposals, two of the proposals?
Right.
The first one is the footpath from Cabbage Hill Sang to Hazelwood Lane. Yes. And linked to it is number 15, a bridleway route to link the two and perhaps beyond eastwards in the new development. Who is progressing those? I'm asking because I've actually had some queries from horse riders in Binfield who are struggling with is it the B3034, the road over Cabbage Hill?
Yeah.
And would like to see a bridleway to link Hazelwood Lane. And then they are also struggling once they have reached the end of Watersplash Lane, moving through to Osborne Lane to access the bridleways in the north of Warfield. Who should do I talk in this forum, or have I got somebody I can talk to about those in more detail?
They're certainly relevant topics to the forum. Let's talk the first one, which was our attempt to work with Thames Water to get a right of way from Cabbage Hill to Hazelwood Lane. We as a forum strongly supported the idea that that would give a safe walking route, having crossed the road at top of Cabbage Hill onto Hazelwood Lane into the Northern Boroughs network of bridleways. It must have been 4 years ago that Graham and I and Rob got some level of support from Thames Water, which has landed is to have. Well, initially we proposed having any sort of access, whether it became a public right of way or just a can't remember what the word is, a permissive path.
Yeah.
Permissive path, that's the word that I was looking for. They were very supportive. We had a lot of meetings with them. We had a site visit, and it all went very quiet. They wouldn't answer our emails again. So I don't think we were the first to try this. If I remember rightly, Hugh's been interested in that in the past. So unfortunately, it is a bit on the difficult pile at the moment, Sheila. It would be. I know that everybody in that area would really benefit from it, but we haven't been able to make that progress.
Colin,
Nicholas.
Has the British Horse Society been engaged?
On that one,
part of my role with the Ramblers is putting in the requisite paperwork for new paths.
Right.
The British Horse Society do exactly the same. So if there is evidence that could be shown that this is a reasonable thing, then the British Horse Society, through their membership, will have somebody who's looking at it, I would think, or who would be prepared to look at it.
So we had a long discussion in the forum about whether the link that we were proposing should be a footpath or a bridleway. And because of the crossing of Cabbage Hill, crossing of the B Road on Cabbage Hill, we weren't entirely sure it was going to be a safe option for a bridleway to just appear onto that busy road. So we were primarily pushing for a footpath at that point. So we haven't specifically engaged them on that. Hugh?
Unless you can get Thames Water to start talking again, we're really hitting our heads against a massive brick wall.
Yeah.
It's Thames Water land, and if they don't want to play ball, I don't think there's anything short of legislation that can force them.
Yeah.
The other point about horses is the difficulty of getting horses to the new start of that path at the top of Cabbage Hill, because I don't think you'll get horses walking through the new greenway of I've lost the name of the new estate behind
Woodhurst Park.
Woodhurst Park. It's just not. There's too many dogs, young children, cyclists, runners. They're just not going to mix. So I think, to my mind, it's a good try, but I doubt whether it's going to come to anything at all.
Dennis has got his hand up.
Yeah, I ride through there, through the estate and to Cabbage Hill, and then connect to Hazelwood Lane by just going down the B Road on a bike. And it is horrible. I would personally chip in a bit of money if someone was just going to put in a bridleway from Cabbage Hill to connect to Hazelwood Lane, it would be a really big improvement, and it would make Hazelwood Lane accessible by bicycle from the rest of Bracknell. At the moment, the only way to get onto Hazelwood Lane is via busy roads. And I do it, but it's not great.
Yeah, you're probably the safest route on a bicycle, because it's no good for walkers and it's no good for horse riders going down that way that you to get to the that crossroads. Is that?
Yeah, it's it's no fun on a bicycle. It's probably reasonably safe, but it terrifies me.
Sheila, you've still got your hand up. Did you want to come back?
I was just going to say, is it worth me investigating further as how much, how big a requirement there is from horse riders to do that? I got the impression, and I haven't talked to them in detail, that they are probably riding down from Binfield direction, riding down West End Lane and through the splash and then up Water Splash Lane, which I think is probably not used so much by people and children that Hugh is concerned about. Is it worth me trying to identify what the requirement might be?
I think if you have contacts and find out what they're looking for, that would be helpful. As Hugh mentioned, there are some challenges around some of those paths on the Greenway, Northern Greenway, because many of them are not horse permitting. But I think you're right. West End Lane and Water Splash Lane would permit horses. Yeah. Hugh?
The better link would be to use Avery Lane and then the driveway up to Home Farm, and then the Home Farm land straight across into Hazelwood Lane.
Yeah,
it would be a much more practical route to try to, if you want to put a new path in.
Assuming they never get planning permission for the Home Farm development.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was turned down on appeal. I mean, in terms of the Water Splash Lane connection, which you also mentioned in the original question, there is a plan to join up Water Splash Lane with a bit of a permissive bridleway through the top edge of Larks Hill. There'll be a Pegasus proper lit, traffic lighted, well, I've forgotten, signal controlled Pegasus crossing near where the community hub's going to be. And then we're planning to put a bridle route round the edges of the Priory Field playing fields in a fenced off route, which will pop out at the bottom end of Old Priory Lane, use Old Priory Lane as the eastern arm of that sort of three sides of a square, and then connect with the existing bridleway at Hedge Lane, which crosses the new ironically named Taylor Wimpey development, the Skylarks. And that then pops out onto Maze Lane, and then we're not exactly sure what's going to happen further east from there as you go towards Bulbrook and so on in the next phases of the Warfield SPD area. So we are making, we're connecting 106 money for the Pegasus crossing. We're looking at the feasibility of connecting up these routes with a mix of rights of way and permissive routes. So the Cabbage Hill bit is the problem, really, getting around the Sang to link up with, if we ever get that bit of land from Thames Water to then get to Hazelwood Lane. But it is something on the really long-term radar.
So Sheila, just go back to your comment. If you do have contacts with horse riders and find out more about what their issues are and how many, what sort of numbers of horse riders are we talking about in that part of the borough? Because it's it's been heavily developed. There aren't many stables in the area, and I know Hugh has asked in the past, is where are they coming from? Hugh.
Well, just wanted to make just that point. The last of the stables in Maze Lane will go with the new development, and I think trying to make facilities for horses in the centre of what's going to be a massive, great urban development is the wrong approach. We want to be pushing the horses out into the countryside, into the north of the borough, not try and provide places for them all amongst the houses and the children and the dogs. They won't mix.
So we need
safe, be the users.
Safe routes for them to get onto that bridleway network.
Yeah, yeah. We should be pushing them out, not in. Or when I say pushing, giving them facilities to get out into the peripheral paths.
I think that's the way I would put it. You know, there's such a wonderful array of bridle routes around in the north of Warfield that the more they can be made accessible to people, the better.
The Maze Lane stables will go very soon, and that's the last of the really sort of, I would expect, amateur hacking stables in the parish. The rest are right on the outside now.
Okay, can we move on from that point? Is that okay? Let's move to the next slide, please, Graham. So yes, this is another change to the forum, I'm afraid. For reasons that I can't quite understand, Bracknell Forest Council is allowing Graham to retire. So this will be his last Access Forum meeting after 14.5 years. Last day with the council will be the end of July. He started with the council back in January 2009 and attended his first Access Forum meeting a month later. I think one of the things that he will have seen change a lot is that in the past we got an awful lot of support and interaction with Natural England, which has oversight of Access Forums, but given their limited resources these days, I think that's largely disappeared. Certainly in my time as chair, we've had very little interaction with Natural England. So yes, as it says on there, Graham previously worked as a landscape designer. So when he joined the council and was having to work on the diversion of the Jennets Park path in 2010, it was a bit of a steep learning curve. And then perhaps his most complex diversion was the rail crossing at Sandhurst into Ambarrow Court, which is successfully achieved. I have to say, personally, I want to just say a big thank you to Graham, both for the support and encouragement to the Access Forum, and also for all the work he's done on rights of way and open spaces in the borough. I personally think the people of Bracknell Forest have got a lot to be grateful for all that you've done, Graham. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a difficult decision. I mean, whenever you decide to go, there'll be, half finished jobs, and if you put it off for a few months, something else would crop up, and there'd be other issues to deal with. So it seemed as good a time as any. I'm into my 64th year, so I didn't want to go on forever. And there's other things I'd like to do while I'm still fit and healthy. So yeah, it was going to be this year at some point anyway. So yeah, but not an easy decision, especially as one of my teams just left. Marliese has departed. The biodiversity officer has left to work for the National Trust, so I'm having to re-recruit somebody into my team in my last 2 months, which is a little bit awkward, but yeah, we'll work through that, and as much of the outstanding work as possible in that period. But yeah, I've enjoyed, it's been great working with the Access Forum, having all the external partnerships developing outside the council, which are really important, working with all the individuals, the volunteers, the town and parish councils, councillors. So it's been really good experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. Do you want to just say something about consequences for how the parks and countryside, particularly the rights of way issues, will be managed?
Well, yeah, I mean, there'll have to be a sort of interim transitional period where I think, to be honest, resources will be reduced. We're running sort of little in-house training sessions with me, Rose and Rob at the moment, to try and hand over as much knowledge and, you know, where things are stored and filed. There's still lever arch files full of old Berkshire orders in the office. It hasn't all been scanned and digitized yet. So there's stuff like that to have awareness of. We're still working on the definitive map review, which we're hoping to get all the legal bits finished before I go, if not the sort of graphic side of it. So yeah, obviously Rose and Rob will be the main sort of backup, but I think there will be a need. And I'm not sure exactly what form my replacement will take, because Parks and Countryside is trying to restructure at the same time as losing several key staff. So there's a lot of recruiting to be done, and the job titles might not be identical to the people who are being replaced. So the team leaders might have slightly different functions to the existing. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. I hope, obviously, to be involved in helping with that transition, working on job descriptions and so on. But obviously the rights of way function is one of many bits of my job. It's not a pure rights of way officer function. So whoever replaces me will also have to be a bit of a jack of all trades and learn some of those skills on the job, as I had to when I started back in 2009. I can't imagine, it would be very hard to recruit somebody who can hit the ground running in every part of the job I do at the moment. So I think there'll have to be some, you know, build up of skills and training on the job. But hopefully, you know, it won't be too long a gap before the team leader posts, because there's also a senior ranger to be replaced, and we've also just appointed a new principal tree officer who was working as a consultant for the National Trust, but had his own business and has lost a lot of that work. So he's starting early in July. So the tree team will be a bit stronger. So there are other team leaders on the same level as me, effectively. So it all affects the overall workload and resources to deal with it, really. So I don't know the exact picture, but there'll be some kind of transitional arrangement, and then hopefully somebody taking the reins in the future.
Thank you, Graham.
Okay.
One of the consequences is obviously Rob and Rose will be a little stretched. I want us to be very conscious in this meeting of not pushing too many actions their way just at the moment, until the Parks and Countryside team has managed to sort itself out. If that makes sense. So,
yes, thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, thank you ever so much, Graham. Let's move on to the next slide.
Okay, that's me again.
That's for you to talk about. Yes.
Yes, I mean, our new members might not be so aware of the how long this diversion of 2 paths in Winkfield on the Royal County Berkshire Polo Club has been going on. It's been a long battle with multiple temporary traffic regulation orders to divert bits of paths while they do works on various polo pitches, completely changing the levels and sort of creating a moonscape in the process, and not, to be honest, not being very respectful of the public rights of way across the land. So the plan shows the diversions. The order's been made, but we haven't been able to confirm it yet because of the condition of the paths. They are getting better, and I hope to be able to confirm it before I leave, because we want to incorporate this in the new definitive map when we republish that in the middle of the year. So the photo on the left shows part of Winkfield footpath 19, sort of between D and E on the map. That's looking west. And then the work, after a lot of chasing, the lower photograph is as it looked in February. The contractor did some work to change the levels, but there's still concern about drainage and whether all the water is going to run off the higher land into the footpath, and what the finished landscaping is going to look like. Obviously not acres and acres of bare soil. So it's a bit of a, it's still slightly up in the air, but I really hope we can confirm this before the end of July and get this one properly included in the new map. I'm not sure who.
Certainly be a nice one to go out on, wouldn't it,
Yeah,
Graham?
it would. It's been so long and so much trouble. Yeah.
It's certainly been on our agenda almost all of the time since I've been on the forum.
Yes, yes.
And
since I've been on the forum.
Yeah.
Well, that far back, yeah.
Yes, and we had quite a, how shall we say, a robust debate about it at our last meeting, in which we felt that they were the landowners were really not being fair to the public or to the council, and showing a distinct lack of respect. So, but you know, the forum has approved the approved, that's the wrong word, recommended the diversions. We're certainly supportive of those diversions on the basis that it actually will make a route that's walkable rather than a route that is not walkable or potential to be hit by a polo ball or whatever they're called.
Exactly, dodging horses to cross a polo pitch. Yeah.
So, but it is. I mean, just to be fair to our new members, most of the footpaths and rights of way in Bracknell Forest are easily accessible, relatively few access issues. This one has been, as Hugh says, a long-running saga where it's just. It's just been very frustrating for all concerned. So yeah, Graham, if you fancy a walk on it at some point, I'm happy to join you.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. Yeah, I do want to do an inspection. Yeah, so definitely. Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions, comments on this one? Okay, should we move on to the next slide, please?
Okay, I think this is Rob has got some information on this one.
Well, I have some information, as in there's probably not too much information, but for those of you who aren't aware, there's a bridge at the sort of southern point of Shepherd's Meadow that, following a formal inspection in April, was deemed no longer suitable to pass over. It's also part of a Hampshire public footpath, which is currently closed. As you can imagine, procuring the funding and the replacement of such a bridge is not a particularly easy thing to do, especially considering its location. The latest information is that the Ranger has been sort of hard at work to procure some quotes following a sort of our tendering application process. So several quotes and contractors have been out to have a look, which we've now gathered. And then following that, the next step will be to try and procure the funding to replace the bridge, at which stage we'll obviously then need to award the works with a contractor, which will obviously be booking them in, as well as necessary permits and other paperwork that need to be approved by people like the Environment Agency because of flood prevention, etc., etc. So there is no short-term solution to the bridge. However, it is on our radar and it is slowly progressing.
Rob, can I also add to that? Thanks for your update. Just to say, I've been approached by the site ranger who's managing this project. He's getting lots of queries from the public, sort of asking about what's happening. There are sort of notices up informing the public about what's going on, but we think we're going to put some more information on our website and then add QR codes to the posters. So residents can sort of scan those codes in or go to our website and get a sort of a more comprehensive update. I think there's lots of queries sort of coming through to customer services and or through to the Rangers, and the more comms we can put out on this, just sort of keeping people up to date with what's going on, the better, I think. So I'm working with the Rangers on that at the moment.
That would be good, I think, because obviously it does form part of the Blackwater Valley Path, and there isn't a very good alternative. Probably not a helpful comment, but I just wonder whether there's any way in which we can improve the footpaths on the Bracknell Forest side of the borough to be able to make an alternative walking route. around that side because they get incredibly wet in that meadow at times.
One, funding. Two,
I assume that was why. That's why I said it probably wasn't a helpful comment.
It's a long distance of grazed triple SI meadows.
Right.
So getting permission, let alone funding, would probably be something that's particularly difficult. Replacing the bridge would probably be easier and quicker.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you say, unfortunately, because of its location and an easy diversion, because it goes over a river, is unfortunately not really there.
Anybody else got comments, questions on this one?
Are we solely responsible, or are Hampshire going to put their toe in the water too?
We don't know. They haven't offered, even though it's their footpath goes to the midpoint of the river, slightly bizarrely. Yeah, I don't know. The problem is we own the land, so we own both sides of the Blackwater, even though it's over the borough boundary into Hampshire. But I don't know. They haven't said, oh, well, we must be responsible for half of the bridge because it's got a public footpath on it.
Bracknell owns the land in Hampshire.
Yeah, on the south
fine.
west side of the river. Yeah.
Yeah, fine. But I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
Is that all of the area on that side that we own? All of the park area? The open
Up
space?
to the railway boundary, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think we owned it, but I knew we took responsibility for the paths. But,
yeah, it's freehold.
Yeah.
Fine.
Up to the railway, yeah.
Yeah, so their only interest at this point is the fact that it's on Hampshire's footpath 505.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, well, it would be good to get it open again, but I do appreciate the issues and the funding issues, particularly when everything's so tight. Yeah, it is a major gap in that part of the footpath network. Any other comments, questions on this one? Let's move on to the next slide. And I think Graham.
Yeah, I think it's me again. So yeah, this is a project we're working on this year. I started last year to consolidate all the changes made and confirmed through modification orders to the definitive map and statement for Bracknell Forest since we last did this exercise, which was in January 2013. So we published the map, which is currently on the website and as a physical hard copy, which people can ask to look at the council offices.
Graham, could you just explain what the definitive map is for our new members?
Oh yeah, so the definitive map and statement is the legal record of public rights of way of all sorts, footpaths, bridleways, restricted byways and byways open to all traffic. So it's the legal record that they exist. It's used as the proof that the right of way is there. The fact that a path isn't on the definitive map can't be used to prove that it isn't a right of way. So you can't use it the other way around, but you can use it to prove that a right of way exists on a particular route. And the statement is the written description of all those paths that accompanies the map. Excuse me. So the statement describes the location with grid references, which parish it is in, the length, the width, if the width is defined, and unfortunately a lot of ours aren't. And the two documents together are the map and definitive map and statement. So we've picked up some changes in the review, of extremely thorough review of the statement, which Rose has gone through with a fine-tooth comb. Sort of minor editing changes we can do without needing to go through the formality of a modification order. If it doesn't affect the path itself, so say restaurant or a pub no longer exists and is referred to in the description, we don't need to do a modification order to change that sort of wording. But anything that alters the length, the length or the width of the path, or some limitation that's along it, like stiles and gates and so on, we need to do a modification order to pick up those changes. Plus, there's one or two other items we want to clear up, which are on the next slide.
I should explain, thanks Graham, just to say that when I first joined the council, I think one of the first jobs was going through, well, one of the first big jobs was going through this definitive map process, which is quite a sort of big exercise, you know, for a small little team to go through all these sort of.
Yeah, it was you, me, Hugh and Richard, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Sitting in a room.
And I think at the time we sort of went through it and we did the sort of consolidation and published the map. I'm very happy with the process, but this one, having sort of been in the council for a number of years, wanted to do more kind of a meticulous go through with a fine-tooth comb, capture all the sort of changes so they could be accurate as possible. And there were quite a few sort of inaccuracies we picked up in the statement, especially regarding sort of where place names are changed, you know, sort of like the reference need to be tweaked, about sort of location. So yeah, we've been quite methodical, which has probably made more work for ourselves, but it does mean that the process has been much more thorough. And once we do publish the map in the next few months, it's going to be a really good record. I should explain as well, we've got the hard copy like Graham said, and we've got the snapshot in time, which is available on our website as PDF files. But we have an online interactive map which residents can access, which has got all the up-to-date changes. So that's kept up to date with all the sort of current sort of changes to the sort of lines of the map and the details.
Yeah. Rose, would it be a good idea to send that link to that to our new members?
Of course, yeah, happy to do that.
Yeah, because it is very, very helpful. The other thing just to point out is that the reason it's so important to get this right is it gives very strong legal protection for the public's right to use these rights of way, and that is so important.
Yeah. Oh, the other factor that is important, and Colin quite often mentions when we're talking about path dedications and so on, is that they then get recorded on the next revision of the Ordnance Survey maps. So they become a right of way identified on the OS maps. So if people are using the Explorer maps to say they're on holiday to explore an area, the maps will show up as rights of way, as a red dotted line or whatever the symbol is for the right type of path. So that's another benefit. All of this work gets sent off to Ordnance Survey, and then as they revise maps, they incorporate any changes as it goes along. Shall I go to the couple of examples of the ones we're working on?
Yes, please do.
So the stopping up of a short length of completely useless bridleway, which was chopped off by the M4 when it was built and was never dealt with properly by the highway agency, presumably. It's totally overgrown. It's literally never used. So in theory, it's a bit of a liability in terms of, you know, we're responsible for the surface at public expense, but it's not used and you can't go anywhere along it. And it's right on the borough boundary as well. The green line across the map is the boundary between Bracknell and Windsor and Maidenhead. So literally it's that, and it stops at the edge of the motorway. So we identified this in the last rights of way improvement plan as an anomaly which we wanted to sort out. Then we consulted with Binfield Parish, as we're required to do, about closing it, and they said, well, okay, but we don't want to lose length overall, so can we get Moss's Path, which is over next to Binfield Football Club, sorry, dedicated as a proper right of way. At the moment, it's just a permissive path along the edge of some council owned land next to the football club. They actually lease the land on a long-term lease. So we're going through the process of a path creation order agreement with ourselves as both highway authority and landowner to turn that into a public footpath dedicated, as we said earlier, to Robin and Richard Mosses, and then in exchange for adding that length to the network, we stop up this path, assuming there are no objections when we go through the consultation process. So those are two that we're working on and want to get added to the map before we republish it. There are one or two other bits and bobs we spotted. There's a path in Sandhurst that goes straight through somebody's living room, which I need to get on with in order to, well, make contact with the landowner and move that onto the footway, so it's round the edge of the property. I'm trying to think of the other ones. The other ones are relatively minor sort of edits to things or lines that we want to shorten a path which goes straight across Downshire Avenue with no crossing point. So yeah, a bit suicidal. Obviously used to go from Old Bracknell Lane and wandered off south before Downshire Way existed as a dual carriageway. So there's a tiny little stub at the end of that we probably want to stop up, and bits and bobs like that. So yeah.
Hugh, did you want to ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I won't make the comment. It's nothing to do with Warfield. The Binfield Bridleway 23A. It's Binfield, not Warfield.
Did I say Warfield?
Well, I thought you did.
I thought I said Binfield, but it's on the map as Binfield. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, and on the ground it's Binfield as well.
Yes,
yeah,
it is Binfield. Yes.
Oh, apologies if I said Warfield by mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, at the last Access Forum meeting, we did discuss these two, and the forum raised no objections and was supportive of these two actions. And clearly Moss's path, originally dedicated to Richard's brother Robin, would be very appropriate for that to become a dedicated public right-of-way, protected public right-of-way, and as we said earlier, some sort of plaque or whatever to highlight their contribution to the borough. So yeah, that'd be great if that can happen. I know, even though you're making the order on yourself, it's still a long and tedious process, which requires things to go through public consultation, don't they?
You're on mute.
Sorry. Graham.
Sorry, the dog was barking and I muted myself.
Sorry.
The creation doesn't require public consultation.
Oh, right. Okay, because it's
yeah.
on. Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, hopefully it can move forward.
Yes.
Very much appreciate that one being ticked off the list.
As soon as the director signs it, it'll be a public footpath. Yeah.
Right. Good. Good. Well, on their desk tomorrow morning then.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments on this one? Yeah, I do realise this is a lot of work to go through this definitive map and the like, but from the point of view of the public's protected right to walk, it's very, very important.
Mm.
Let's move on then to item 8 on the agenda. Which again is Graham. We're making you work for your last meeting.
Yeah, this is a kind of standing item in the agenda. So for our new members, in the past, we've talked about mainly where planning applications for developments are affecting public rights of way that are on that land. Quite often, the character of a right of way will change, or it will actually be diverted as a result of development. So yeah, the first big one I worked on, as I said earlier, was the footpath 15 in Jennetts Park, which was completely relocated into a load of green corridors and connecting different green spaces together instead of running through residential areas. And certainly the government guidance is to avoid putting paths sort of under tarmac, as it were, in the new footways and roads, and keep them in a sort of greener locations and a bit more recreational in character. So I don't have a particular update for this meeting of a sort of new case to bring. But we thought it was worth saying some of the previous ones, and if the new members wanting to catch up on those, we can provide the sort of previous presentations and minutes to provide the background to those. So Amen Corner or Amen Corner, I never know which way around, north and south, both are affecting footpaths. Binfield, make sure I get it right, Hugh, footpaths 11, 14 and 15 are, well, on Amen Corner North, footpath 11 is already affected by development. 14 and 15 will be affected as a development that's sort of near the Copped Beach Hotel, running down to the railway line to the south, will create some diversions on both of those paths as a result of development. Hedge Lane Bridleway runs through the Taylor Wimpey site, which is part of the broad Warfield development area. We're trying to retain the character of it. We're carefully designing any points where roads cross it. And that was one we discussed previously. Cricketfield Grove on the Broadmoor estate was affected by the way the developer dealt with a change of level and put in a ramp which sort of zigzagged backwards and forwards with steps in the ramp without any consultation with the council. Sort of ignored the fact that it was the right of way and there were certain requirements. But so that was one we had some discussions around. And Avery Lane, which is at Newell Green, again affected by Red Road development, which comes off Sopwith Road near the primary school. So running, obviously they had a new access road in the middle of Avery Lane, which used to be a byway open to all traffic. So we had to go through a traffic regulation order process and again create a segregated crossing for horses, pedestrians and cyclists where they meet this new road halfway along. So quite a lot of processes involved in that. So those are some examples of rights of way affected by development. Obviously we'll go on having new ones in the future as well. That will crop up through the planning system. So just wanted to give that background and the offer of information if anyone wants to follow up on any of those from previous meetings.
Oh, Hugh, you've got a comment.
Well, only to say Avery Lane, there's nothing new there. I mean, it's been in the same state now for what, 2 years? I'm not aware of anything changing.
No.
Whereas Hedge Lane is particularly sensitive at the moment because the building is still to be done.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure that Hedge Lane remains, as you say, a nice, proper greenway.
Mm. Yeah, good point.
I think I was particularly keen for this to be something that was regularly on our agenda because you know the continued developments. We have to be aware of what's happening to these public rights of way. We have to make sure the continued access happens and that they are constructed appropriately. So, yeah, it's something that because Graham sees the planning applications coming in early, he can bring to our attention when necessary. Hugh?
Yeah.
To my mind, more in Warfield, more significant than Avery Lane is what's happening in West End Lane on the bit from the splash up to the right angle turn in West End Lane.
Oh, yeah.
It is still closed and it is in fact a road. It's not a path, it's a road, and yet it's been closed to traffic and nothing's been said about it.
It was closed illegally.
All had a special horse crossing, but it's all closed. Nobody can use it.
Yeah, that was done without any approvals from the Highway Authority initially.
So presumably it's the Highway Authority that would have to act on that then.
Yeah.
And have they any interest in acting?
Yes, I mean I thought they got enforcement to go and look at it.
They did. They put a notice up, but the notice was backdated, and nothing's changed. The road is still, the path is still closed to everybody, not only horses. It's closed to everybody. So no horse traffic is allowed to use West End Lane at the moment, which is a great pity.
Yeah.
Okay, is it worth the recommendation from the forum that
I'm sure it would help. It can't do any harm.
Yeah,
There's
so
no reason why they can't open it. It's just a pain for them because they're using the crossing for construction vehicles, and they'd have to have a man on the gate, so to speak.
Construction phase 10, yeah.
I'm not sure quite what the process is for us to go through this, but it certainly sounds as if there would be some interest in the forum making a recommendation to the council that action is taken to open up the traffic to at least to the horses. The pedestrians have a way around. The horses don't.
Yes, pedestrians have a way round and cyclists have a way round, but horses don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have put thought about a proper diversion when it was
Is that
done.
something you can act on, Graham, or is?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have been involved with conversations with highways when it first occurred, but we can bring it up and make sure that the correct, if nothing else, the correct sort of regulation orders and so on are in place. So unless somebody's properly prohibiting horses from using a piece of highway, which is a bit odd, yeah, they should be able to they have a right to go through all that work, really.
Yeah, they do. But
in fact, probably cars still do if it hasn't got a traffic regulation.
Cars have the right to, but it's all blocked off so that cars don't fit any longer. They've made the path too narrow.
Yeah, yeah.
So is everybody on the forum happy with making that recommendation as a forum?
Yeah, I'll find out all the background.
I'll take that as a yes. It is something where we could perhaps express our disappointment that it hasn't been quickly resolved.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anybody does get involved in planning issues or sees anything around plans for new estates as it affects not only the public rights of way, which is the one Graham's commented on here, but the other thing we need to think about is how do those estates link in with walking routes, cycling routes, horse riding routes,
and sangs.
And the sangs that we have. We'll come on to sangs in a moment, but that was one of the reasons that proposal for the path from Cabbage Hill to Hazelwood Lane came about, because we realised that there'd been a lot of thought for public access within the development, but not the connections. And it's the connections to the network that really get lost in this, because the developer has no great interest in that.
Yeah.
And in considering the planning application, it's not necessarily the council's responsibility to look at those connections like that. So yes, please keep an eye on things and bring them to the forum. Any other questions on that one? Let's move on to item 9. Right, well, that was me, wasn't it, to talk about that. So Michael mentioned early on that we do organise site visits, and we had one back in sometime in the winter to around the Buckless Forest Sang to see the developments there. We've had two suggestions for site visits. One was to Amen Corner North and South, which we did visit the Sangs and some of the development, must have been about 4 or 5 years ago. But Hugh, you certainly came with us on that one, I think. And Michael.
I was trying to think. I don't think I've been on any visit to Amen Corner, and I think it'd be excellent to go.
Or maybe it wasn't. Well, no, Michael was on it.
We've done the forest, the Frost Folly. Frost Folly Sang and Windmill Meadows. Surely about 2 years ago we did an evening walk there.
It must have been more than 2 years because it was pre-COVID. But
right.
Yeah, my feeling is that Amen Corner would be a good place to visit sometime over the summer.
Yeah.
Go to the Sangs and see what's happening with the footpaths through the new development to the south. I guess it comes down to me to try and organise that. So is anybody interested in that? Hugh's interested, Nicholas interested. Yeah, Sheila's interested. Yeah, okay. I'll get in contact and we'll see if we can find a date. Yeah, for the Sangs, Graham, the Sangs that have they been handed over to the council yet?
Well, Frost Folly 1 and 2.
No, Eamon
Sorry.
Corner.
Oh, well, no, it hasn't. Pig Little Field is still
so we don't
owned by Bellway Homes, but it's open to the public, so there's nothing.
There's nothing to stop us going, but we don't have a ranger that is responsible for it.
No, not as well. There's probably a ranger in waiting, as it were, because we've been trying to transfer it for ages. So
yeah, I think it's Oscar, if I remember rightly, because he said that when he was recruited, he was told that would be one of his.
Yeah,
and that was a few years ago.
No, so, maintenance, having vehicular maintenance access has been a real stumbling block with that one. Yeah. And now the one helpful contact we had at Bellway has changed jobs, so I don't even know who to talk to nowadays, which is a bit awkward. But we're still pursuing the transfer. So and obviously it's having impacts on Binfield 11 going up to Pope's. What's it called? Pope's Manor.
Meadows.
Yes. God, dear. Pope's Meadows, which is the green blob at the top of the drawing. So that's our park. So I mean, there's quite a nice connection down Moral Hill Lane, footpath 11, the Sang, and then the nasty connection southwards on a Wokingham path.
Yes.
Over the railway bridge and the 329, which is horrible, and then. Oh no, sorry, I'm too far south. No, we don't want to do that as well.
No, I don't want to go that far south. I don't think. Otherwise, it will be a very long walk for people.
Yeah, down onto Peacock Meadows. Yeah, but that's the southern green lump is the northern bit of Peacock Meadows.
Yeah, I think I'd use the pedestrian crossing that's on to get across to the south.
Yeah, the bridge rather than the underpass. Yeah, it's more pleasant. Yeah, sorry, I jumped to the other slide, which was the the Sangs we were talking about as well. I'd have to get permission to walk through the Church Lane one north of where it says Warfield, the long thin rectangular one, because that's still with is now being landscaped, I think, by Harrow Estates.
Oh, okay.
They're having detailed discussions about the car park construction at the moment.
Where are we on the map?
So this this one here, if you can see my cursor going backwards and forwards, there's a public footpath that far that then cuts down to the church. But the rest of the concrete track, which pops out on Malt Hill, isn't actually a right of way, although people do use it. But I think we should ask permission before taking a party through there. And then there's a road connection down to the Windmill Meadows, which again is still under developer management.
So if we put the Frost Folly area one to later than the Eamon Corner one, and things may have progressed.
Yeah, there'll be more to look at on this new one.
Yeah,
there might be stuff to look at on this one as well if that's moving on, because it has got planning approval. So
okay, so I'll try and find a date when we can self-organise ourselves for a trip to the Eamon Corner ones and try and work something out. May end up being maybe July or September, sometime like that, but we'll try and do that before the next meeting. Okay, any other suggestions for places to visit? Let's move on then to item 10. Claimed rights of way, and Graham.
This is proving to be a rather difficult case at the moment. We've got a lot of evidence, user evidence forms collected, but nobody's actually applied for the modification order and notified the landowners formally. So we realised a few months ago that just having the user evidence forms on their own doesn't really trigger the legal process properly. So we're still trying to find somebody to take on that responsibility. Obviously, it could be quite a big responsibility because we know the 3 landowners involved are all going to object strongly to the path becoming a public right of way. So it will almost inevitably go to some form of inquiry or appeal hearing with the inspectorate. So it's quite a big responsibility to put your name to something like this.
Just to give people a bit of background, this is a track from Hayley Green into Hayley Green Woods that local residents apparently been using for years. And then one of the landowners has objected and said it's not a right of way. And Graham has collected all these user evidence forms to say that they've been using it for years. Is that a fair, quick summary?
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's residents in Hayley Green Village who've been using it for decades without challenge, and then suddenly the chap who owns the top end of it has started objecting. Possibly, I mean, there's been a massive increase in use during the COVID restriction periods, as was seen with open spaces and footpaths all over the place, but it seemed to particularly affect him. Then it passes into Warfield Park ownership, the main estate being down here, of course, and then to get a connection onto our path in Warfield Chase, which is a council-owned open space. Unfortunately, there's a slither of this open space that still belongs to the developer who built this housing, Martin Grant Homes. So we need 50 meters of their land to connect to our path to get out onto the highway. So we can't really create a dead end right away that doesn't go anywhere. So they've also said they would object. Annoyingly, even though the plan was to transfer the land to us at some point. So we've got 3 objecting landowners to deal with.
I should say as well, Graham, that the landowners have been submitting their own evidence. So we've obviously got all the user evidence, which we've gone through, catalogued, analysed, and sort of had a look to see sort of the level of use for that period. But we've also been analysing what the landowners sent us, and obviously there's kind of legalities involved in this as well, which sort of complicates things further. We've looked at sort of historic land ownership, where if there's any evidence of signs that are being put up by landowners stating this is not a right of way. So we've been sort of reviewing any of that kind of evidence as well. So it's kind of it's trying to stay impartial and balancing all of this and taking an impartial view to be fair to both parties. So yeah, we've kind of been doing a lot of work on that respect. But like as Graham says, we've hit a bit of a stumbling block for the next part of the process.
I think it gives a good example of the complexities of these things. This is clearly a route that many people have walked, possibly still do walk, and it clearly is stretched between giving access to both Westmoreland Park and Hayley Green Woods. So you can see the advantages of it. You can see this would be the sort of thing that, again, perhaps if it had been thought of at the time of the developments around this area, it might have been something that was part of the requirements when it was being properly, when the area was being developed. That's one of the reasons why looking at development proposals early, thinking about connections makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Anybody got any questions or comments on that one? Okay, let's move on to item 11, and we're back with, was this Rob or Graham?
I can't remember.
It says on my screen Rob or Graham.
Oh, right. We do a double act. I'll start. Yeah, so the second bit of Frost Folly is under the same sort of section 106 agreement arrangement as the first bit of Frost Folly. in that when they've paid a certain baseline commuted sum to the council, we take over management and maintenance responsibility prior to the land being transferred. So I think Frost Folly was the first one that we'd done that on. We almost become a contractor to the developer for a period while the actual freehold transfer is worked on. So it should follow on fairly quickly now after this initial transfer of responsibility. So that happened about 2 weeks ago, no, Friday the 26th of May. It became our responsibility.
Does that mean it's open now?
So it is open, officially open.
Oh, well done.
We're working on the, well, Rose is working on the comms with the site rangers. We're going to modify the web page, which refers to Frost Folly Park. And rather than having 1 and 2, we'll just treat it as one site and change all the statistics and sizes and lengths of paths to make Frost Folly one big sang. So it'll be about 24 hectares. We've basically started off with a 12-hectare park and added another 12 hectares, but through this process. So it's a good big area now.
Just to add to that, Graham, just to say that I'm liaising with the site ranger, Charlie, on this, and they're looking at improving access between the northern and southern sections of the site. So there's sort of better connection between the two areas. And they're sort of, as part of the comms as well, we're doing the usual kind of responsible, visitors, sort of anti-littering, any ground nesting birds, that kind of thing. So we're just going to try and promote our usual messages. But yeah, it's fantastic news for residents. Now it's under our management, and obviously we're mentioning about the sort of litter bin emptying, exciting things to cover. But all kind of quite important. So yeah, we hope to have that news out fairly soon.
And before Hugh puts his hand up, can I remind you of Hugh's request for access from the south?
Yes.
Yeah.
From Osborne, it is Osborne Lane, isn't it?
Church Lane.
Church Lane at that point.
The junction.
Yeah, because we don't want people to have to drive to open spaces when they don't have to.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that has to wait until the land transfers has happened, but
probably will, and we'll need some discussion with highways, because there could be I think there's a concern that if we create a proper entrance there, there'll be a temptation for people to park their cars on the verges on Long Church Lane to come in that way. So although we're trying to encourage people to walk from the south, an unintended effect might be problems with car parking along that very narrow lane. So we do need to be a bit careful about that.
It needs a solution, but
yeah,
it does need access from the south, especially with all the new housing that's going to be coming in that area.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be there, but we just need to think about those other consequences while we do.
Need to think about people walking along Osborne Lane to get to it. Because from the Skylarks development, Taylor Wimpey development, it'll be very popular, I would imagine.
You can't not make an opening just because cars may park there when you've got the footpath, public right of way coming up from Warfield Street to Halo Farm on Church Lane. And just going straight over, and it just should go straight over Church Lane into the new sang. It's a right of way all the way, and I cannot understand the hesitancy about making an opening in the south. Really can't.
You'd have to talk to highway engineers in the office.
It's nothing to do with highways. It's a public right of way. It's a footpath.
Something needs to happen, and I know it's not going to happen before you leave, Graham, but I think for Rose and Rob,
Church Lanes and what you call it, an unclassified road. You can make openings where you like without planning permission.
So
yes, noted.
We need to make it workable for residents. I mean, it's great to have all this open space in the Sangs coming along, but if you require people to drive to it, it hardly meets the what we should be looking for in the borough.
Sustainability. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I'd like to see that whole area have pedestrians and cyclists and horses have priority over the vehicles, to be honest.
Yeah.
Give them a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are ways you can do that.
Lane is not a busy road.
No.
It carries relatively few cars, except when church services are running on Sundays or other days of the week.
Yeah. It's something that we should be pushing for the residents to have proper use of.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's good to have the knowledge that Frost Folly 2 is open, and thank you, Graham, for all your work on that one. I know it's been going on for years.
It has.
Okay, so anybody else got any questions, comments on that one? Okay, let's move on to item 12 for Rose.
Yeah, I'll keep this fairly succinct. We call this slide administration. It's more kind of like the promotional opportunities that we've been working on. So it's part of the Rights of Way improvement plan, which is a 10-year plan for improving rights of way. We conducted a midterm review halfway through its lifespan, and we got some really good sort of results from how many improvements have been delivered to improve access to rights of way over the past 5 years. And we thought it would be really good to be able to sort of share that with residents at the same time as trying to sort of not push them, but encourage them to go out and enjoy sort of open spaces, SANGs, recreational routes, rights of way, etc. It's all good for health and well-being to sort of improve physical exercise, to be able to access sort of green spaces and access nature. So it's all that's all listed in the Rights of Way improvement plan too. So I've been working with digital services team to provide a new web page, which will include some statistics, what we found out as part of this midterm review. And we can then link our comms, press release. We're looking at putting something in Town and Country Extra this summer. So to all link to that page, and then just encourage residents to go out and sort of enjoy these routes that are being created. One of them that springs to mind is the SANG, which is the Rob, what's the SANG called? Which was originally the Long Hill Park group. It's completely phone from my head.
Bulbrook.
Thank you, Bulbrook Countryside Corridor, that's right. So that's one of the sort of relatively new routes, which Rob has done a lot of good work on, providing signage and sort of linking up. So yeah, anyway, that's something we've been doing in the background. Also, I thought that we could do with some improvement about providing walking events, like a directory on our website. We sort of sporadically put a few events up here and there when they sort of were happening, but I was sort of conscious that there's a lot going on, not just led by us, but other organisations. So digital services team have created a directory on our website where we're sort of putting various walks. One of them is the Bees and Butterflies walk at Ambarrow Court and Horseshoe Lake on the 24th of June, which I'll be promoting. So yeah, I was just giving you a bit of background, and all of this links in nicely where I can sort of reference LCAF as part of this work. LCAF were heavily involved in the sort of the Rights of Way improvement plan and delivering improvements. So it's a good opportunity to promote LCAF as well.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Any questions or comments? I do think it's very important for us to have a good communications of what's going on in the borough. As Nicholas pointed out when he introduced himself, many people do not know what's on their doorstep. And certainly from my point of view, one of the great parts of our borough is the fact that we do have walking routes, cycling routes, horse riding routes, open spaces. It's a fantastic part of what Bracknell Forest is about. So promoting it, getting people to use it, health and well-being issues coming in there, all makes sense. Okay, let's move on to any other business? Has anybody got anything they want to raise? Hugh's hand's gone up straight away.
Sorry about that. The National Week of Walks, I want to draw the people's attention to, starts 31st of July, runs through to the 6th of August, and there is a walk organised 6 o'clock at Windmill Hill Sang car park by the Bracknell Forest Society, and I'm doing a guided tour of the Warfield Sangs.
Can I just correct you on that one, Hugh? It's not a national week of walks,
Isn't it?
it's the Bracknell Forest Society's
Oh,
week of walks.
it's Bracknell Forest now, is it?
Yes.
I thought it was national. Anyway,
we haven't quite gone national. I should explain. I'm chair of the Bracknell Forest Society, which is our local civic society, as well as chair of this forum. So yes, there is a walk on Monday, the
31st of July,
from Windmill car park. So.
Colin, can I check? Is that something I think I discussed with you previously? That's not something you want help publicising, is it?
I don't want it to go much wider because we struggle with numbers. Yeah. But if anybody from the forum wants to join in, I would be very happy to for people to come along. The challenge with organising walks around the borough, as I found out, is that if you offer evening walks around the borough, you end up with 50 people. And it's unmanageable, it's unsafe. So we do try to keep the numbers in check. So it's primarily members of the Bracknell Forest Society, but I'd be delighted if any members of the forum wanted to come along. And yes, Hugh is a great leader and very knowledgeable, and possibly will take us to Frost Folly too at the same time.
I'll take you to all of them.
Yeah, and the plague
by the
pits.
back door.
So yeah, I'll send out the details to the members, but Rose, yeah, please don't put it on your website because I can't cope with 50 people turning up. The car park can't cope with 50 people turning up. But it is something that really does go down well, is summer evening walks, so people can come after work to go and find out different parts of the borough. It'd be nice if there were more opportunities for people to organise that. Okay, anybody else got any other business? Dennis?
Could I just ask when did you say that walk is?
It is on Monday the 31st.
Okay.
At 7 o'clock in the evening. I'll send it to members.
I hope it's 6 o'clock because otherwise it'll be dark before we've started.
It's 7 o'clock.
Not in my diary, it isn't.
Right, okay. Okay, well, that's another issue to sort.
We've been caught like this before.
Bring a torch.
Yeah, it's you know, days are starting to shorten by the 31st of July.
Right, okay. All our other ones are starting at 7 o'clock.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, I'll sort that out with Hugh later and let people know. Rose, you got your hand up.
Chance to practice some nighttime navigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a correction, Colin, to one of the earlier slides. I noted there were 11 members. In actual fact, the forum has currently got 12 members.
Oh, right.
But as you said, we do need to review current membership for those who may not have been to more recent meetings.
Yes.
So yes.
Yes.
That's under review.
We had Richard Everett from the Windsor Great Park.
Yes.
Crown Estate last time, and I think, talking with him, I think he means to come regularly when he can.
Yeah. I wonder whether we need to send him a specific invitation rather than just the general invitation for future meetings.
And even make it possible for him, as he did last time, to send somebody else in his place.
Yeah, that was what we were expecting, that they rotated it amongst the three of them for whoever was on duty in the evening. So, but yes, Rose, can we send a specific invitation rather than just the normal one that goes out with for all members?
Of course, I can arrange that.
Yeah, I think it just would a personal invitation
Sure.
might encourage it, because it's so important to link in with the Crown Estate.
Yeah, no worries. I think we can, Colin, we usually have an agenda setting meeting, so we could talk about it then and see if there's anything we would like Richard to provide an update on.
Yeah. So yes, as members, just to do remember all the Swinley Forest, Swinley Park, Buttersteep, all the Crown Estate lands within the borough, massive amount of publicly usable open space that the Crown Estate allows us to use under some sort of agreement with the council. So, anybody else? Okay, item 14 is public question time, but we have no members of the public. So I'm assuming there's no public questions. Which brings us to item 15, which was the date of the next meeting, which is Tuesday, the 10th of October, starting at 7 p.m. So please pop it in your diaries. And somebody else will have to work out how to run the slide deck on here.
I've already booked in a training session with Graham. He'll show me.
That's all right. Before I close the meeting, I do want to repeat my thanks to Graham for all that he's done, and wish him a happy retirement. And maybe in retirement, he might be tempted, for old time's sake, to come and walk some of our public rights of way within the borough.
Yeah, it might be.
Or maybe you just had enough of them.
Well, I want to do some volunteering of some sort. So you never know. Yeah.
Yeah. There's plenty of volunteering opportunities.
If I get away from RBWM's rights of way, I'll come to Bracknell's.
I just take the view that retirement is swapping paid work for unpaid work.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
Anyway,
what I've found.
Yeah. All the best, Graham, and thank you ever so much. And I'll call the meeting to a close, and we're 9 minutes early. So
well done.
Not done too badly. Thank you ever so much, everybody. And I'll be in touch about a visit, and we'll see you all on the 10th of October. Thank you ever so much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Colin.
Okay,
Thank you.
Everyone. Thanks, Derek and Joanna.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Colin.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Derek.
Okay, I am here. Okay.
Yes.
And all the best to you, Graham. Sorry
Oh,
to hear
thank
you're leaving or retiring,
Yeah,
but escaping.
yeah. Escaping into
best
the
of
wilds
luck.
or something. Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, it's not for a couple of months yet, so I'll see you before then, I'm sure.
Okay, then you take care then.
Thank you. Okay, thanks a lot, Derek.
Bye.
Cheers, bye.